Morning arrives not with urgency but with a hush, a cool breath drifting through the shutters of a small stone cottage nestled in the crook of a hillside village. Pale light washes over the wooden floorboards, revealing the softened shapes of a humble workshop. The scent of beeswax lingers like a memory in the air, warm and honey-sweet. Upon a smooth oaken table, last night's candle molds rest, each filled with golden promise, as if they captured the sun before it rose. Within this stillness, the candlemaker stirs, not abruptly, but with the measured rhythm of someone who has long known the value of silence. Her fingers, weathered yet gentle, brush over linen robes as she rises, then trace the edge of the window frame before opening it just a little, letting in the hushed coo of morning doves. She moves slowly toward the hearth, where embers whisper in their bed of ash, and she rekindles them with the reverence of lighting a sacred flame. Copper pots gleam faintly in the dim glow, soon to melt another day's batch of wax. Each motion is purposeful, not rushed, pouring cool water into a clay basin, unwrapping a parcel of tightly woven wicks, lifting a beeswax brick that carries the scent of nearby hives. Outside, the faint rustle of leaves hints at an orchard not far from the village, where bees have long worked without complaint. The candlemaker, too, is part of this steady harmony, a life shaped by patience and firelight. As she lights the first candle of the day, the tiny flame dances in silence, casting soft golden halos across her worn hands. The room glows gently, and the rhythm of the day begins, not with noise, but with warmth, inviting the listener to linger in its peaceful glow. In the hush that follows dawn, mist clings to the cobblestones like a memory reluctant to fade. The candlemaker's steps are soft upon the flagstone floor as she prepares her morning tea, steam curling upward in gentle spirals like prayers lost in thought. She lifts the worn kettle from its hook above the hearth, the iron creaking slightly, a familiar song of beginning. A small bundle of dried chamomile and mint waits in a clay jar nearby, fragrant and calm. Outside the shutters, the village is still sleeping. Smoke curls slowly from neighboring chimneys, joining the drifting clouds that hang like wool above the treetops. Inside, the candle molds are lined in quiet rows, pewter, ceramic, some carved with ancient village symbols, each waiting to be filled with the warm language of beeswax. A linen cloth is spread on the work table, embroidered at the edges with fading thread, perhaps stitched by her mother or her mother's mother. It smells faintly of lavender and wood smoke. She works with gestures that feel inherited, ancestral, dipping the wicks gently, lifting, turning, letting them cool as she hums a song that has no name. The wax glows golden in the firelight, casting delicate shadows like pressed flowers against the far wall. A cat sleeps by the hearth, its tail curled neatly around its nose, unbothered by the slow alchemy unfolding nearby. The act of candle-making is not about the flame alone, but about the waiting, the soft patience between each dip, each layer. It is in this rhythm, repeated with quiet devotion, that the morning deepens. Outside, the sun begins to rise behind the fog, but inside, the candles glow like stars awaiting dusk, and the listener is invited to rest in this timeless ritual, a world where nothing is rushed, and every moment is warm. A single droplet of wax, still warm, trails down the side of a tapering candle like a golden tear, settling against the mold's edge with finality. The candlemaker watches it quietly, as though reading a story in the motion, a small, molten poem spoken in silence. Her workshop is dim but kind, full of soft wooden shelves lined with herbs, twine, beeswax bricks, and handwritten notes pressed between pages of aged recipe books. This morning she prepares a special batch. The wax is infused gently with rosemary and orange peel, the oils stirred slowly in a copper pot that has seen decades of flame. The scent, warm, herbaceous, slightly sweet, curls into every corner of the room, embedding itself into wood, cloth, even memory. The wick she selects is braided by hand, dipped in salt water and dried on linen. A trick passed down from an old monk she once met, who claimed it kept the flame truer. As she dips the first wick into the melted blend, her movements are reverent. Wax clings, then cools, then clings again, each layer an offering. Her hands do not shake, they are practiced, confident in their softness. Outside the window, sparrows flicker past, and in the garden the bees stir among the late summer blossoms, drawn to the old hives that sit beneath the lilac tree. The candlemaker's work is not a craft of ambition, but of devotion. Each finished taper is placed in a wooden box lined with wool, where they'll rest until needed. For prayer, for dinners shared in the hush of winter, or for guiding a soul through long nights. In this stillness, the listener drifts closer to sleep, wrapped in the sacred repetition of warm wax, old songs, and the unspoken promise of light. The morning begins with a breeze that carries the scent of nearby meadows, sweet grass, drying dew, a faint trace of wild thyme. Through an open window, sunlight filters through muslin curtains, creating patterns on the floor that shift like lazy river currents. The candlemaker sits at her bench, polishing a row of iron molds with beeswax cloths, humming a tune only the birds outside might recognize. Today she prepares to visit the village square. On a low table, she's arranged her candles with care. Fat pillars the color of warm honey, slender tapers tied with flax string, squat votives infused with lavender and lemon balm. Each one bears the soft scent of summer hives, of warmth captured and stilled. She wraps them in linen, folds them into a wicker basket, and places a folded note beside each. Blessings, not prices, written in looping hand. The journey to the village is not hurried. The path is lined with hedgerows full of slow insects, soft buzzing, the occasional flutter of a moth disturbed from sleep. Her boots press into earth that is damp but not cold. Along the way she pauses at the edge of a stream, where a single heron watches her pass without alarm. She smiles, not needing to speak. By the time she reaches the square, the market has only just begun to stir. She lays her cloth upon a wooden stall, smooths it, and begins placing her candles as though arranging an altar. There is peace in this offering, in watching strangers hold her work and breathe in the calm. As the listener imagines this slow exchange, a stillness settles in the chest, a rhythm of trust and small joys, glowing like a flame just lit. Ash settles gently in the hearth, sighing into the stones as morning deepens. The candlemaker moves through her space as if wrapped in memory. Each object she touches, each drawer she opens, part of a quiet ritual repeated through the seasons. She gathers beeswax in thick, golden slabs, each one with fingerprints of the hive still visible on its surface. The scent is immediate, earthy and sweet, like distant fields and slow-burning sunlight. Today she prepares floating candles for the autumn equinox. She lines walnut shells along a broad wooden tray and begins pouring melted wax into each with a tiny ladle carved from olive wood. A sliver of cotton wick is set gently at the center. Her hands are steady, her mind adrift. Outside, a few leaves fall from the birch trees, their spiraling descent mirrored in the dance of wax inside her bowl. Later, she carries the finished shells to the stream at the edge of her garden, where the water flows lazily between mossy stones. She waits for dusk, and when it arrives, the sun dipping low behind the hills, she lights each candle and sets it adrift on the water. Tiny lights bob and spin, reflected by the stream's surface like stars misplaced. This moment is not for show, but for memory, an old tradition passed down, meant to honor the balance of dark and light. The candlemaker watches the last flame drift away, her breath slowing to match the current. In this soft surrender, the listener is invited into her world, where flames are offerings, not tools, and even rivers hold their breath to bear the light. The hearth crackles softly, sending a warm glow into the corners of the room where shadows still cling from the night. Rain patters gently against the windows, and the candlemaker moves with slow intention, drawing her shawl tighter before settling at her work table. A bowl of wax rests nearby, faintly steaming, the scent of beeswax mingling with the sharpness of pine kindling and the softness of morning bread left to cool. She is carving today, taking a cooled taper and etching small designs into its side, vines curling up like tendrils of thought, tiny suns, moons, and the spirals often found in the ancient stonework of the village chapel. Each mark is made with a tool passed down from her grandmother, its handle smooth from years of use. Her fingers know these patterns by memory, not by thought, as though the candle itself remembers what it must become. Around her, the room holds its breath, a ticking clock made of walnut, a cup of rosehip tea steaming faintly, a blanket folded across a wooden bench, still holding the shape of where the cat had been. Even the air feels softened, thick with the comfort of rain and ritual. When she finishes a candle, she lifts it toward the window. The cloudy light catches on its ridges, casting faint shadows across her hand. She smiles, knowing it will glow differently now, not just with flame, but with intention, with care. Outside, the storm is not fierce, but tender, a lullaby of droplets and distance. And inside, the world is small, warm, and whole. The listener, too, begins to feel shaped by this space, molded not by worry or urgency, but by the gentle hands of a day well begun. Dawn spreads like watercolor across the sky, pale pinks and foggy blues dissolving above the trees. Inside the cottage, the candlemaker wakes not to alarm or noise, but to the sound of the wind brushing against the wooden shutters and the soft creak of timber stretching from the cool. She lights a taper from the hearth's coals, its flame catching slowly, then blooming with a golden hush. It is this light, soft, flickering, that greets her each morning, a quiet companion to the waking hours. Her first task is to blend a new scent. She crushes dried petals, rose, calendula, and meadowsweet into a fine powder, folding it gently into warming wax. As the fragrance lifts, she closes her eyes. The smell is like walking through a summer field in memory. Sun-warmed skin, open skies, the buzz of life that needs no sound. She opens a small drawer where she keeps handwritten notes, formulas for blends, scribbled in ink that has begun to fade. The edges of the pages curl like petals themselves. She dips a small ladle into the wax and pours it into round molds, each one the shape of a river stone. When cool, the candles will be smooth and gentle in the hand, perfect for keeping beside a bedside table or bathing in soft twilight. The room fills with warmth, not just from the heat, but from the scent, the glow, the care stitched into each gesture. Outside, the sun is rising behind low clouds. Inside, light flickers across the beams of the ceiling, and the day begins with calm intention. For the listener, it is a moment of slowing, of returning to breath, to softness, to the quiet flame that lives within.